Today I have a Lasko 3733 that is in need of cleaning and probably maybe a little bit of oil. So the date on this one, and I've actually cleaned this fan before, it is, let's see, it's the patents, the model 3733. I don't see a date code on this. Here we go. 2015 to 2016. So this is 10 years old. And it was only cleaned once. And that was by me, I think a year ago. And this, at this moment in time, gets super high hours on it. In fact, it gets run year round, and a lot of times it just runs 24 hours a day for multiple days in a row. This fan at this point in time is used by a renter, and recently the landlord had another 3733, and I tell that story in another video, that has failed because the thermal fuse got tripped because a fan fell out of the window onto a bed, motor heated up. So I said, to prevent this from happening, you should make sure you clean the other fans. And the landlord said, I don't know really how you take them apart. This is really, so I said I would do it. So that's what we're gonna do. So I've done videos on this before, so very simple to do if you're doing this for the first time. And my point being is, these fans, why they're inexpensive, I think right now at Home Depot you can get these for $20, and that is today's dollar. That is really good. Now they're not the highest performing box fan out there today, but unless you want to spend $50 or more, you're not going to get something as of something. If you spend $50 or more, you'll get something more powerful for sure. But really, for $20, and this is now 10 years old, and it really hasn't been serviced up until recently, you're really just not going to find any value for that. Again, these aren't the most powerful fans out there. They're not the most durable. Like these are fragile fans. So what I mean by that is, if you're running one on the ground or the floor, they can tip over fairly easy, and these blades are notorious for breaking. And then most people just chuck them, or the grill breaks. But if you can keep them secure, the motors themselves, they're actually well oiled from the factory, as well as the bearing sleeve. They have sleeve bearings. For those of you who don't know what that means, is there's a shaft which one end the blade, the hub of the blade rests on, and then the shaft comes through, and there's a little sleeve bearing on the front and on the back, right? And the shaft spins in those sleeve bearings. And from the factory, they come oiled, what they call permanently oiled, which theoretically means you don't have to ever open up the motor and oil them. Now we know if you run these long enough, that's usually the first failure point, aside from too much dust getting caught up in the motor. And you can prolong the life by just a few drops of non-detergent oil. I mean, a few drops every few years even. So that's what will keep these things going for a long, long time. And despite Lasko producing a fan that has kind of cheap quality materials, like thin metal that dents easily, as well as plastic blades that will break fairly easily if the fan falls over, it will hold up. The motor will perform for a long, long time. So they have that going for them. And also, notoriously, Lasko makes blades that are not balanced. What I mean by that is, when you put the fan on, if it vibrates, it's because a lot of times these blades aren't balanced. There is a way to balance them. It's not super involved, but you have to be a little bit more than a novice with this to balance them. So that's not really today's scope. So now that I've removed the grills, you can see this side's not horrible, but that's the rear. But the front, I mean, this is pretty bad. So we're gonna take that outside to the hose. So what I'm going to also do, you can see there's some dust built up in there, not horrendous. And because I'm not at my personal workshop, I don't have my compressed air with me, or I would use compressed air to blow out the openings where the motor is. Okay, so next, so you can see a little bit more. So next what we want to do is pull the blades off. With these Lasko 3733s, really quite simple. So what I like to do is, with my forearms in this situation, holding the cabinet down, just pull up. And here you go. Now this allows access to the motor, and that still spins pretty freely. I do feel a little, I actually feel there's actually some oil on there still, so this thing really doesn't need any oil. Yeah, see, look how tippy these things are. And let me get a paper towel. Because I don't like oil really on the shaft. But, so I am not going to actually oil this. Now I was going to do what I call a poor man's oil job today anyway. The proper way to do it is you remove the motor and split the motor open, right? And then you have access to the sleeve bearing, which is what this shaft goes through. And then you put just a couple drops. You really need like 3 drops maybe. And then on the back side, so in this case, Lasko covers up the other end of the sleeve bearing. Now, if you take a look at many box fans, you can actually see the shaft there, and you can see the sleeve bearing, and it spins. Now, I don't know from a design standpoint why Lasko decided to cover up the back there. Is it because people were touching it, or dirt more easily can access getting into the sleeve bearing? I don't know. But just from a quick standpoint, I did oil this fan, I want to say, last year. So I oiled this personally a year ago, and it's still in good shape. So we're going to let that go. And what I'm going to do is, if I can locate some cleaner, and you can see like the rust. This is like your typical wear and tear on one of these that aren't babied. But again, it's 10 years old. All right, let me see if I think I found some cleaner. Of course, it's just about empty. That's wonderful. So what we'll do is just do a quick. Now, again, if I was in my own location, what I typically do is, when I give these a cleaning, is I then put a thin coat of wax on the cabinet, internal, external. Now, you don't have to do that at all, but see this rust? If when the fan's much newer and you give it its first cleaning, like after maybe the first season that you use it for, and you just put a thin coat of wax on the outside, and I also on the blades as well when I clean them, it will protect the cabinet from rusting. Now you may say, well, I don't use it in the window, so it was just rust caused by rain. It's possible if it was used in the window and it was raining at some point and it got wet. But realistically, if it's operating in a humid environment where the air is very heavy with a lot of moisture, it's actually the moisture in the air that gets pulled through that's creating this rust, not rain or anything like that. Years ago, that frustrated me because I would say, hey, I have this box fan that never gets used in a window. Why is there this rust around it? And unfortunately, fan manufacturers go very cheap on the quality of the metal. You can see the dents, and it's not because this thing was thrown around, because if it was thrown around, those blades would have already been broken. It's just inferior sheet metal, and then they go as easy as possible on the paint, so therefore you get some rust. But this is for a 10-year-old 3733 that just has a lot of hours on it year round. It's actually very darn impressive. If this was built from a higher quality material standpoint, as in the sheet metal was better and the blades were more rugged, and it was the sheet metal was better, it wouldn't fall over if it was a wider cabinet, then this, I dare I say it, for those of you who might be collectors out there who are watching this, if this had better build materials, this might be on par with a liquid P223 in terms of just longevity. But what's going to ultimately do these fans in is the craftsmanship is so poor that the plastics break on them or the metal dents and people throw them out. Okay, there's some. I can see the windings, which is good. It's not totally junked over. Okay. So normally what we do here is if we're not taking the motor apart, I'll take some compressed air. So you can do this too. Take compressed air, blow it in there. Whether you have an actual air compressor or one of those spray cans that you might use to clean your computer keyboard, you can just blow out the air. Since I have neither here, the best I can do is just kind of do what I'm doing here. But there's some dust in there, but it's not horrible. Again, I did this a year ago. And then on the front side, just make sure the support beams here, or supports, or whatever, call that the mounts, are kind of dust free. The front of the motor typically is better, and you can see all the windings, which are those copper wired things in there. Looks like there's no dust really on the front of it. Again, this spins nicely. Okay, so next step, we are going to take these blades and the grills outside, and we're going to introduce it to the hose. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now we're outside on this beautiful warm day, and not that I need to show you how to hose these off, but there are tricks, right? So first, normally what I do is, if I'm at my own location, is I hit them with a shot of simple green. I always keep that on hand for certain cleaning projects, but I usually hit them with simple green. Since I don't have that and I just have the power of the hose, we're gonna do that instead. So first, I'll just hit them with get that back here. First, I kind of hit them just to rinse them out off a little bit, so maybe we adjust the stream here. Again, not rocket science, but I'm going to show you a trick that will save you from having to hit every slat on here by hand. And if you don't have a brush, which I don't have handies with me today, how to kind of deal with that. All right, so let me adjust the camera up because I got to hold the grill up. So maybe, hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So what I do is I gotta adjust this again. This is actually a nice sprayer. It's really nice. Okay. All right, so what I do, and I hope you're seeing this on camera, is I basically hold it and just go. It's kind of a higher pressure here. Just kind of go up and down. Yeah, I can see the dirt coming right off. I don't know if you can catch it on camera, but it's knocking off those big chunks. And I know there's been many videos out there of people showing you how to do this, but I just thought the point of today's video is to show you a $20 10-year-old fan continue to last for another 10 years if you just spend the length of this video in time once a year. Even not even once you don't even have to do it once a year. Again, this is a fan that runs year round. All right, so what I do is I take a closer look to make sure get all the dirt off. That dirt came right off. That's amazing. So that's the front. So meaning on the front, most of the dirt's on the back part of it because it's blowing air towards it. And we got it all off. Just about. See, and what I mean about inferior quality is you can see, hopefully you can see, the chunks kind of just like plastic that has disintegrated off this thing. And again, that's usually why people get rid of them, is because like the plastics and stuff start to go bad, and so they just toss the whole fan. The other thing too is like there's so many of these out there that you could easily get your hands on another set of these grills. Now, this one's not bad either. So what I was told, that this fan does not get run in the window. It gets just run like in a bedroom, I guess, by a tenant, and it just runs. I think that's pretty clean. Yep. Ooh, this blade is in bad shape. All right. So we will take the blade inside and wipe it down. All right, so I brought the blades in while the grills are drying outside. I really don't have anything to really clean this with because this cleaner is empty. And I don't know if they have more here or what, but I'm just gonna do this and get going. But anything that I'm doing here is an improvement over, look at that, improvement over what was here. So what I'm just doing, because I don't have any more spray cleaner, is I'm using a paper towel with some lukewarm water and a little bit of soap. And I'm just using that as my my surface cleaner. It seems to be working. There's just only one issue that I've come across with this, and again, it goes to the build quality. On some of the tips of these blades, on this particular set of blades, there's like gouging, or I don't even know, it's not even really it's not even warped, it's like cracked, it's chipped like there. So that also can contribute to your blades being out of balance. Now, frankly, there's nothing much you can really do about that unless you replace the blades. If you're so inclined to, Lasko does on their website have a parts section, and you can actually, believe it or not, order replacement blades for your fan. Now, most probably don't want you to know that because they want you to buy a new fan. The other thing too is, because these fans are a dime a dozen, you can actually find probably a Lasko 3733 in the trash and just pull off the blades, right? But most average consumer is not going to have time nor want to do that. Likely not even going to the Lasko website and ordering another set of blades, right? Because by the time they ship them to you and everything, the blades probably cost, I bet I'm not wrong here, the blades probably cost, and by the time you ship it to you, more than it would be to buy a new fan. So then, why would you do that? So going back to the original alternative, which is just use what you got. And that's what we're gonna do here. Can it cause any damage? No, not really. So what may happen is the fan may sound louder because of the air moving through. It could be more of like a whirling sound, but so gradual over time you would not even notice it, nor would you even notice it if you were standing in a room next to probably another fan. You know, like it wouldn't be totally noticeable. The other thing that could happen is the blade could continue to get out of balance, which puts pressure on the shaft and the bearings because it's kind of like this wobble. But because these things are, the blades are so light, and the sleeve bearings and the shaft are relatively well made, that you shouldn't have a problem. So in other words, if you have some minor cracking at the end of your blade or chips like this one, just run with it, just go with it. You should be fine. Now, this is not an ideal cleaning process. I wouldn't do it this way. I would use spray cleaner, not lukewarm water with soap, and then go back with a damp one to rinse it and dry it. But considering that's much more than what anyone else does with their fans, we're okay. So you can see that this is much cleaner. The idea too to get the dust off the blades, aside from just potentially breathing it, is also, it contributes to the imbalance of the blades. And these things warp as well over time, especially if you use them in the window in the sunlight. Alright, this is not going to be perfect on the back and the hub, but I just aesthetically want to get my fingerprints off of it here. Alright. Yeah, so you can see that? That's a chip. That one has it. And this again is the knock on the quality of the materials that they use. But I understand there's a formula, right? They say if we put better quality into this plastic, what's the likelihood that we can sell this for a higher price to offset the cost of the quality, and that people will buy more? Or we keep the quality less, and it's at a point where, you know, even if you don't clean them, but you don't knock them over and stuff, they'll still last 5, 7, 8 years. Or some people just replace, they get so dirty they don't want to clean them, they just throw them out. So I understand from a financial standpoint why Lasko does what they do, but as a consumer standpoint, and coming from an era where things were made with a higher quality, I hate it because I gladly would pay more. Now you may say, if you're watching this video because you want to learn how to service your Lasko, you may say, well, does Lasko make a higher quality fan? Yes, they do. You can spend a few dollars more and get a fan with a sturdier cabinet, wider. Some of the models are known as, they have something that's called a Power Plus, or something called a Pro Power. They may not be readily available at your typical store where you'd buy one of these, but if you go to an online retailer, you could just quickly do a Google search, or if you go to Lasko's website, you can see all the fans that they have. They have ones with weather shields on them, so if you do use them in the window, protects against the rain a little bit, as well as it has a little wider cabinet, so it's a little easier to put in a window, and it's not as flimsy. So you do have your options there. If you're like, well, this is all that they make today, and this is the only choice I have. All right, so while the grills are still drying, I have them outside in the sunlight. This is ready to go back on. Now, typically what you want to do is there's a flat spot on the shaft, and you want to look for that flat spot on the blades themselves. And this one's starting to become a little rooted out or whatever, but I can see a little kind of almost like rust spot or something where it looks like it was. So what can happen is, if you don't line this up totally correct, and if you force it on, that's a whole nother story, but you can kind of bore out the center. What'll happen is the hub on the back of the blade and the shaft, the shaft will start spinning inside the hub, therefore the blade's slowing down, and the motor will actually overheat, because it's not, part of this is everything works together, that when the blades move the air comes through and keeps the motor cool. That's why you have the openings on both sides. So what I like to do is line up the flat part to the top, line up what I think is the flat part on the hub at the top, and just try to gently line it up. Now you can either lay the fan down, or you can do it like this. Let me actually look to see what I'm doing here. Okay, so that goes right on. And that spins very nicely. Again, you don't need to oil it every single time. See, and that, how I would know it would need oil, for those who want to know, is it would, when I would spin it, it would come to kind of like an abrupt stop pretty quickly. If you're going to use oil, as I said earlier in the video, use a non-detergent oil, such as what I prefer, Zoom Spout. Zoom Spout has been great for me, and you just need 3-4 drops. Don't drench it, because what happens is you get buildup and it turns into sludge, and it just makes a mess. And it can impact the performance of the fan. And to do a proper oiling, you do have to disassemble the motor, which we quickly here determined that didn't need to be done. All right, so we will come back with dry grills, and then we will get them put on. All right, our grills are mainly dry, so we're going to reinstall, and they're mainly clean. There's a few little specks of dirt here or there, but we are way better off than we were when we started. So that's what we're going to go with. since I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to editing videos, I apologize that I am not forwarding this section, but for the novice who hasn't done this before, I mean, it's not that rocket science, but what I like to do is to line these up is do opposite corners. Typically I lay the fan flat, which I'd kind of recommend. The other thing too, talking about quality, right? So these are cheap sheet metal screws. I think they're sheet metal screws. And so sometimes, and the way these holes are stamped or however they do it, you don't get, it's difficult to line everything up. So I find, again, this is the tip, if you hit opposites when you're screwing these on versus just going around the side of the cabinet, it makes it a little bit less aggravating. And I would also recommend that you lay this flat when you do it. I'm just trying to show you. But it's true, with something like this, it really is a disposable product, in the sense that its price point is so low that really, like, you could use this for one season and it's filthy, and then you just, whatever, throw it out. So my son is into this hobby, and he's at a point where he's pulled 3 of these out of the dump as they were being, as the individual who had it was getting rid of it and asked for it, and they kind of laughed at him and said, "Why do you want this? It's filthy." And he would say, "Well, what's wrong with it?" And he'd say, "Oh, it's just dirty, I'm getting rid of it." So that's like music to his ears, because all he really needs to do is then just clean it and oil it, and then he's good to go. So he now has one of these that I think is from, I think it's 10, it's also, it might be older than this one. I can't recall, that he is now using in his window. He also got a Holmes branded one just within a few days ago. A lady was getting rid of at the dump, and his mother intercepted it, and within an hour he was using it in the window at the cottage he's staying at. So it's nice because it's just a little time, and it makes you feel like you're getting even more of your money's worth by doing this, as well as you're also not putting something like this in a landfill, because that's basically where they go. And by the way, if you're watching this for the first time, watching this channel for the first time for this video, my son, who contributes to the channel, is 13 years old, and he's been doing this project probably since he was like 7. And so what I'm saying is, if you don't have time to do this, but you have kids who like to tinker, or you want to teach them a skill on how to, like, you know, just take care of what you have, then this might be a good start or a good project. And as an adult, or as a parent I should say, for me it feels good to see the next generation of kids, being my son, kind of pick up a skill of like how to repair something, because he's also found fans that were really in a bad way. Look, there's one more screw somewhere around here, I think. Or did we get them all? No, we have one more. He's also found fans that were in a really bad way, and has basically combined 2 of them to get one good working one. And so it's, here we go. So it's a good kind of troubleshooting, you know, maintenance type of exercise. All right, so this will be the last one. You know, I'm inspecting how I clean the grill, and I get so, it's not perfect, but there's no loose dust on it anymore. It's just a little bit of slight dirt. You might not even see it on the camera. So here you have it. Our Lasko 3733 from 2015 is now cleaned, serviced, even though we didn't oil it, but we checked, quote unquote, checked the oil on it. And let me explain a couple things. And again, I've done these videos before, and there's more out there, but I just want to gearing this video for someone who might have not done this before or may not understand. So these fans, for a long time now, come with what they call the blue plug. It's a non-replaceable fuse. So if you overload it, it's gonna trip the fuse. So you might come across these that have stopped working because something happened, something got overloaded, got wet or whatever, and it tripped this fuse. Now, people like me know how to make it replaceable. You cut off the plug. I'm not telling you to do this, not suggesting it. I'm saying I know of people, or what I would do is cut off the plug and put a new plug on. You're good to go. You don't lose your protection all the way. There's another fuse on this fan. It's called a thermal fuse, right? So the thermal fuse sits in line inside the motor. You'd have to take the motor apart to get to it. Now, what it does is, thermal, meaning temperature, heat, is if the motor gets too hot for whatever reason, operating outside of its designed use, the thermal fuse will blow. Now that's usually, like, even I would say your fan might be done, because I've seen videos of people replacing the thermal fuse. You really have to tear it apart. You kind of need heat shrink. You need replacement thermal fuses. It's pretty advanced, and I'm attempting to do my first one in another project, which we started that video series on this channel. You can check it out. It's a Polonus or SMC fan, and recently I've experienced that actually happening. So the person that actually owns this fan had another one that was in the window, and it was working, or it was functioning in the window, and it must have blown out, and luckily it landed on the bed, I guess. So nothing broke. Typically when these hit the ground, blade and probably grill, you know, it gets cracked. So this person came back and said, hey, the fan was laying on the bed, but it was on, but like it wasn't working. And they said, I tried to plug it in other places, it wasn't working. And I was like, stop, I can tell you what happened. So when the fan hit the bed, picture like no airflow. Basically no airflow is able to really go through the fan. So the motor then starts to heat up, and it heated up to a temperature. It blew the thermal fuse, shutting off the fan. That probably saved the house from burning down, because otherwise, if it was a non-thermal fused fan, I think they all are thermal fused today. If it was a non-thermal fused fan, the fan would have kept running, and either it would have overheated and the plastic would have started to melt or catch on fire, or something catastrophic like that potentially could have happened. So while these, again, don't have, as we wrap it up here, while they don't have good quality materials, the mechanics, if you will, of the motor in terms of the oil that it comes with is good. The sleeve bearings seem to be decent. Shaft seems to be good. But the quality of the blade is not good. The cabinet is not good. So it's like you get a 50-50. But you also have protections of the fuses, 2 fuses, plug and then the motor. So let's, as we leave you, crank it up. See how we do. So this one doesn't have the feet to it, so I'm going to keep my hand on it. So we'll do low. Medium. High. You might be able to see it shaking a little bit. All right. Check out the spin down. And what I mean by that is from when I turn off the power to when the blades come to a complete stop. So typically if you have a decent spin down, you know your fan has good oil. Like already I can tell we're good. All right, so there you have it. Again, this video was designed for someone who might have never done this before and was thinking about cleaning up their fan. We know during a heat wave, your fan's dirty, maybe not working properly. It's good to clean it, especially with, I've seen some of the shelves right now, they're empty for fans, so you might as well clean up what you got and use it. Keeps them out of the landfill, keeps them in service for years. As a reminder, this one's 10 years old and seems to still have quite a bit of life left. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, like, comment. We'll get back to you in the comments, and super appreciate your time. Hope this video is useful. See you on the next one.